Welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I want to unpack the influence of the nodal axis, switching on the 11th of January, the true nodal axis, into the north node of Pisces and the south of Virgo. Now, the nodal axis, that intersection point between the sun and the moon, which is so powerful, has not been across these two signs for 17 years. The entire cycle takes 18.6 years, and they will move, the north node will move into Aquarius on the 27th of July 2026. And that too is a key date, but I will go into that shortly. So I just want to share with you why this is so important. When we're thinking about forecasting, particularly in terms of periods of time, I believe it's crucial to take an event chart right at the start of that period. So that would be the solar return at the start of year 2025. But this event is so influential because it is linked in to the eclipse series. And of course, we've already had the start of the process when on the 18th of September 2024, we had the Pisces lunar eclipse. But it was very close to the mesmeric, shimmering, but potentially deceptive energies of Neptune. And throughout 2025, when the big focus will, for a lot of people, be on Pluto in Aquarius, it will be on Neptune visiting Aries for just under 8 months. It will be on Saturn following up for 3 months and 7 days. It will be Jupiter into Cancer where he's exalted. And of course it will be Uranus making that brief visit to Gemini for 4 months. But if we widen the lens, the energies of the signs of Pisces, which is the sign of culmination, where Neptune's come into the end of its 164-year journey, so it's in about year 163, and Saturn, its 29.5-year journey, and remember Saturn rules time, their journey through this year, beyond their visit to Aries, is so powerful because they are impacting on the eclipses that go across those two signs. Let's just think about the principles of Virgo and Pisces. Virgo is the 6th zodiac sign. It's ruled by Mercury, so it's very much how we think. It can be to do with precision, analytics, details, and also where we find small but important improvements through that concentrated approach. It's an earth sign, so we want to find tangible solutions, but it's also mutable, so it flexes. Now the other sign opposing it, Pisces, is the sign of culmination of the whole journey, because zodiac, the procession of the animals, begins with Aries and ends with Pisces, the fish. So the significance of this sign is it's very much to do with how we feel about things, but also how we like to escape things. It can be about our higher consciousness, but it also can be about compassion, healing, can also be about great sacrifice, but it's also a sign which can be avoiding. So the practicality of Virgo needs to compete with that potentially avoiding and sometimes exaggerated energy that comes through Pisces. And because we do have Saturn and Neptune in the mix, so closely allied to these eclipses, that's what makes the nodal axis moving in to Pisces in terms of the north node on the 11th of January, the true nodal axis, so incredibly powerful for this year. Please stay with me as I go through this. If you're new to my channel, it's great to have your company. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, we have found, as I've been sharing, that 50% of people who regularly watch my videos are not subscribers. If that's you, please help it to thrive. Click that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. Now, I'm a consultant astrologer. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please check out my testimonials below. I don't edit these as they come in, I share as is. If you'd like to take advantage of my free gift of your zodiac general love Chinese and Vedic forecasts for 2025. You'll get those when you order your personal forecast. You get the rest of this year free, what's left of it. Year 2025 is racing towards us. But also, with my special package, you'll get 30% off, but your life roadmap report. All this information will give you Syrian insights, particularly to get a much more intimate understanding of the patterns that are played out in your life. And then with the forecast, you can time your moves and actions over the next year that much more succinctly. Please see the link below for more. If you're a patron, thank you so much for all your support. We will provide a download for you all about the nodal access. You can become a patron from $3 a month. And also, just to let you know, my wife and I, we used to do a daily show right the way through COVID to try and keep people's spirits up, really. And we did it for a long time. It did become quite a big commitment. We've had a lot going on with moving, but we are going to be releasing a new video, but to our patrons shortly, just to update you on how we're progressing in our personal journey. So first of all, let's just explore what the North Node and the South Node represent. So in your natal chart, the North Node is your opportunity. It's where you can head and when you can crystallize your talents, but you have to invest in it. Now, say for example, someone has the North Node in the first house, the South Node will be in the seventh. The seventh house is where we may want to be a bit of a people pleaser, perhaps avoid confrontation. The first house is where we define our individuality. So we can retreat into the South Node in order to protect ourselves, but it's also our habitual behavior. Now the North Node, that opportunity in terms of Pisces, and really Saturn, particularly since March 2023, has been priming this opportunity up for us. It's saying if we work harder at understanding our emotional health, our psychological well-being, but also the connectivity between us all, you know, it's not just the material world, which is basically ruled in terms of culmination by Capricorn. And that's where Pluto has, of course, left. And that's been a very dominating energy. We've seen rampant capitalism, if you like, in terms of share issues and people selling them off. And it was all about empowering the individual through Sagittarius, Pluto. And then more recently, we've had more the harsh reality. And the energy of Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn in Pisces, is a tough one. They just don't go together because Saturn is about boundaries, it's about limitations, it's about rules and regulations, it's about authority. But the less conscious realm is very difficult to govern because the sign of Pisces is limitless energy. And that comes very much through Neptune, but you know, the traditional ruler is Jupiter. So that's very much about higher spiritual beliefs and knowledge. So Pisces energy at its best can be very sacrificing, very much about giving. Its weakness is that it can give to the nth degree and sometimes forget to look after itself. But that's where polarities come in, because the sign of Virgo reminds us that we do need to rest. And the energy between these two signs that I personally witnessed was when my mum was in a care home. So for the last 15 years of her life, she had Parkinson's disease, got progressively worse. She also had some non-cerebral dementia. I spent a lot of time with her the last 10 years of her life, but particularly the last 5, because she lived about a mile away from me and I'd go to see her every couple of days. So I'd be doing things like making sure that, you know, I tried to keep her spirits up. Some of her personal hygiene and care I'd assist with, taking lovely flowers and all that kind of good stuff. But you would see the staff there would give it so much effort, but very often when they finish their shift, or you see them around perhaps on a night out, they'd often be totally, to use a Victorian word, spent. They'd given it so much compassion, but it's important to balance that with making sure that you get rest, recovery, that you look after your own needs. So that's where polarities are so important. It doesn't make everything about Pisces perfect, nor does it make everything about Virgo wrong, because Virgo gets a bad rap, I feel. So with Virgo, it's very much about being picky, critical, but actually Virgo people like to be of assistance to people, often work in support or service-based roles where their position and ability to serve, to provide services, not be servile, is a big part of the fabric of society. So a lot of what supports us all, particularly in healthcare, particularly in social care, particularly in anything to do with food distribution or hospitality, will be accessing these two signs, because the sign of Pisces can be very generous, very giving. It's all about creating that magical atmosphere where we have those moments of escape. But the person who's delivering our drink to us or serving our meal or cooking it is working extremely hard and usually probably isn't in a premium paid role. So finding that balance could be quite elusive, a very Piscean influence. So having the North Node go into Pisces is an opportunity for us all to work on understanding what makes us tick, understanding where we could try to set some boundaries so we don't overgive, but also when it comes to indulgences, because we know that Pisces can be about addiction, that we don't use the energy of Neptune to escape the harsh reality that, say, Virgo may present to us by spinning out with perhaps too much booze or whatever. So that is the challenge with the North Node, but Saturn's really been priming this up, that we have to work on understanding what makes us tick, but also understand what we've achieved since Saturn first went into Aries about 28.5 years ago and began the whole cycle again. And from that point, what are we reaping now? So that's what we're going to find out through till the 27th of July 2026. Now that's going to be particularly significant because once the North Node goes to Aquarius, of course that's where Pluto is, but we're also going to have Jupiter go into Leo that year, and Uranus, the ruler, the modern ruler of Aquarius, will be in Gemini for the long term from around about the 26th of April 2026. And of course Saturn and Neptune will be firmly entrenched in Aries when they return there at the start of 2026. So for us all, we can think about in simple terms, the North Node in Pisces is about owning vulnerability, fear, where perhaps there is an impact on people's mental health and well-being, but also the Virgo energy is taking the steps ourselves to moderate and modify our behaviour to look after our well-being. So one of the great ways we can do that is become more mindful of what we put in our bodies. So if we're healthy in our system, we're more likely to be healthy in our emotions. So for example, if we're eating a lot of ultra processed foods, and there are a lot of it out there in all its different guises, because of course marketeers will package things with all different sort of flash marks on them, like, you know, produced from blah de blah de blah, but actually that doesn't change the fact that it's still got sugar in, still got salt in, still got some additives in, but they will find some way to promote it that makes it look sexy. So one of the things we can do with the South Node is break free of our habitual behaviour of actually being too practical. Oh, that's all that psychological rubbish. We don't want to be looking at that. That's for weak people. That's for weeds. And we have got this very masculine flex going on at the moment, if we're honest. It's going on in the States. It's going on in Europe. It's going on in other parts of the world. And someone did recently remark on my Sun Sextile Pluto video, well, you haven't mentioned Israel. You're obviously someone who's in support of American Jews. I hadn't thought that at all. I can't cover everything in every video. So I don't do a script. This is all from the heart. May sound a bit trite, but it's true. So that Virgo energy suggests that if we're perhaps overeating, not getting enough exercise, not being disciplined enough, which is very Virgo, we can use that energy through this eclipse series this year to moderate and try and take our New Year's resolutions that we set and usually forget by about the third week of January, to take them a bit more seriously. So it's about finding that polar balance. So the South Node will keep us doing the things that aren't necessarily good for us because it feels safe and comfortable. The North Node is where we need to grow. And the growth is going to be difficult this year. I'm going to be really honest with you, because there will be this preoccupation with the Aries energy. But remember, Saturn is in its fall there. And as much as Neptune in Pisces has seen an explosion in substance abuse, whether it's on-label medicines or recreational drugs, and that could have some benefits going into Aries, I would agree. Essentially, because Saturn and Neptune are sitting on these eclipses, as I will show you, we could continue to kid ourselves. But one of the things that I think does get flagged by looking at this is that COVID is not necessarily behind us. And of course, it's a debate that's hotly contested between people who feel that sometimes we have to do things we don't really want to do because it's for the greater public good, whether it's social distancing, washing our hands habitually, whether it's wearing a mask. Some people would choose to have a jab, other people would choose not to. Who would take a jab for something that's just so fresh and new without years and years of research? Of course, it has contained some risks, but there's always a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is always hard to get with Virgo, because Virgo can concentrate on the detail to the exclusion of it, and the Pisces energy can avoid the reality of the Virgo energy because it's too painful. I don't want to make those changes. I like to continue doing what I'm doing. So let's think about the things that we can address personally. We do too much sitting. We do too much time on computer screens. I'm terrible. I'm a real news addict, and that's not good for my brain because obviously the blue light that's emanated from these devices. So my big plan is to get back into reading. I love reading, it's very escapist, but it also gets me away from thinking about astrology. So these are the small but important steps we can all take. Can we analyse what we're buying in a supermarket? Or better still, let's not buy from a supermarket if we can afford it and there is a local retailer that we can support. Will they have some fruit and vegetables that's perhaps more local, perhaps less sprayed, even if they don't have a certificate of organic certification? It may be that their stuff's still pretty good, they just can't afford to get it all audited. So that kind of stuff, we can all make small but important changes if we're walking more rather than going in the car. Not always possible, so if you live in a very big urban environment, the car could be quite important. But if you can cycle, cycle. All these things of the physical realm, but the main thing that Saturn and Neptune are going to be asking us through that North Node is to own who we are and how we've been over this previous cycle of the nodal axis. So we're getting back to, at the end of it, it will be 18.6 years, it's 17 years. What have we been doing for the last 17 years with the nodal axis? What have we been doing for the last 164 years with Neptune? What have we been doing for the last 28 and a half years with Saturn? So it's down to us, because I believe that there could be some growth in COVID this year with these influences. This is not me being a scaremonger. And of course there are other viruses out there, sadly, and because of the Neptunian energy, they're very invidious, they're hard to see, hard to spot, and we live in a world that's just it's predicated on travel. People are moving around socially for business because they are visiting friends and relatives, or it may be because they're relocating. It's a very fluid worldscape we live in, so it's very hard to marshal the borders, and I know that in itself is a worldwide hot topic. It's not just in the States. You know, a lot of people feel their everyday cultures are being too radically affected too quickly. So you could say that Saturn in the sign of Pisces is trying in some ways to bring some kind of management or extra control. So in Europe we've had Schengen, and that's really crumbling. You know, we are seeing Germany wanting to reinforce its borders. We've seen it with Hungary, and it looks like France are thinking about it too. And obviously Britain wanted to do that partly through the Brexit situation. But we also got to feel that Saturn can have its limitations, because if we put a pebble on the beach and the tide comes in, the water as it flows back out will just go around that barrier. So Saturn, through force, through authority, through rules and regulations, doesn't necessarily moderate people's behaviour. So for all of us, we need to evolve to improve our well-being, whether it's physical, practical, structural stuff through Virgo, the emotional, psychological and spiritual dimension through Pisces. So that's the challenge of this year. We can really invest in the fact that we've got all this amazingly exciting stuff going on in Aries, in obviously Gemini with Uranus for 4 months, with Pluto being in Aquarius right from the start of the year, the get-go. But we have to be mindful beyond this equation of the solar return, and also all the new and full moons, the lunations through the year. If you want to check out what your year 2025 will be, please see the link beneath this video to watch my deep dive. They are long, and I've taken a lot of time to give you as much information as possible to guide you. But I do feel these eclipses linked to the nodal axis are truly vital. So the 18th of September, we had the lunar eclipse at 25 degrees in Pisces, conjunct Neptune. But that can create an opaque, shimmering, rather moving energy, which is very hard to get clarity around. Then the solar eclipse, the penultimate one in the series between Libra and Aries, on the 2nd of October, was in a marvellous conjunction with Mercury, pushing us at 10 degrees to sharpen up, finding balance, perhaps seeking fairness, but most of all because the sign of Libra is about relating, trying to be a bit more dispassionate about relating, and perhaps seeing other people's viewpoints and not necessarily being triggered by it. So sharpening up our listening skills. We live in a world where everyone wants to tell, not many people want to listen. Now the true nodal axis, as I mentioned before, begins on the 11th of January through to 27th of July 26, but March the 14th sees the second in the series, but this time it's in Virgo. So the first one was the lunar eclipse in Pisces. This time it's the lunar eclipse, the mirror, if you like, of that event, and it's opposite Saturn at 23 degrees. So this is where public health could come in. You know, we've got the energy coming from the last eclipse, where the last lunar eclipse of the 18th of September, which was the advance notice of this change to the nodal axis. And that was saying, look, we need to still be mindful of being as disciplined as possible. So Saturn being opposite the lunar eclipse in Virgo could bring a cold wind to bear, to be honest. March the 29th, however, sees that last eclipse series in Aries, and that's very much about the individual, isn't it? The sign of Aries is where we want to set out on that journey. We want to make clear what our individual desires are, our individuality. It's a very sort of ascendant type of energy, but it's conjunct Venus. Now Venus is debilitated in Aries, interesting. We get too caught up in our personal presentation, but it's also close to the shimmering energies of Neptune, which is, you know, really right at the end of its journey. At that point, it's at the end of the anaretic degree. But then on September the 7th, we get the lunar eclipse back in Pisces again, but this time this is conjunct the north node. So this is a really important event. So this is asking us to find our compassion. You know, if we're lucky enough to be born into a family that's secure, stable and nurturing, that finance isn't a pressing worry, where there is some continuity in where we live, where there's some not even spoken at times boundaries that are just very reassuring, that is something that we hold within us for life. If you're unfortunate enough not to be in such an obliging and helpful environment at the moment, professionally, emotionally, family-wise, this North Node can be a point when you really are going to be feeling the energy that we're being pushed to embrace, which is understanding really the need to have an emotional dimension in our lives. I see scientists are now, there's been a big study recently, someone said that they did a study of about 100,000 people. It was a medical scientist who had died and had afterlife experiences. So the merging between the science, you know, the science folk, how many times have we heard scientists now believe, because the theory they did have is actually just shifted. Well, that's okay, but if you're more into something like astrology, which does use the maths but also is instinct as well, oh no, that's all a load of hogwash. So we're being asked really to understand that there are things that we don't understand, that you can't necessarily prove. Doesn't mean to say they're not powerful. How many pilots keep reporting on seeing UFOs? You know, it's just all the time, commercial and military pilots. And, you know, slowly but surely it's leaking out that governments have been monitoring this stuff. And then on September the 21st, this is really powerful. We have a blue moon in Virgo, but it is in an opposition to Saturn and the North Node. So I feel that that particularly is going to be so potent. So I would just make you aware of that event, that blue moon. So lunations within the month of September, but this one, this solar eclipse, is a blue moon. And it does see the opposition between, a conjunction between Saturn and the North Node. So what we're going to get with that is the outcome, and in a big way, because that can be about karma, but of course it also means that Saturn is opposite the South Node, one of astrology's most challenging influences. So Saturn in some ways may be pushing, you know, through big government or big business, private healthcare. If you can afford to ring up someone up and have a counselling session, all well and good. What about the people who can't afford that? And if we keep just focusing on the material world, but not what constitutes the biggest part of the human state, is our feelings. If we keep excluding that, we're going to end up with an even more messed up world. So as Saturn's really saying in that conjunction with the North Node opposite that solar eclipse, look, this is a huge opportunity, but we really have to embrace it. Thank you so much. I don't usually talk quite as much, so it's a little bit of a flow there, a conscious flow. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what I feel you can expect over this next 18 months of this nodal return in the sign of the North Node, the point of destiny of Pisces, and South in Virgo. So Aries, we can trace it back to March 2023, when Saturn moved into your 12th solar house. That's when you were asked to really look inward and perhaps go through a period of retrospection. But because we've had the eclipse series in your sign, and when you have the solar eclipse, which occurs towards the end of March 2025, it's going to be the 3rd. That's been supercharging you, along with the North Node, to focus on what's important in the here and now. So they're not mutually inclusive. So that may sound a bit, or may have felt a bit confusing. So one part of you may have been very dynamic, redefining your personal identity, your interest, injecting ongoing strands that really mean a lot to you with greater flair and dynamism. But there's another part of you that has kept calling out for your attention. Now, it's possible that you just felt very, very nostalgic for people that you once loved who are no longer with us. And, you know, grief is a very powerful thing. I don't feel anyone has the guidebook on grief. You may buy some books on that famous site that give you pointers, but essentially grieving is a process that's entirely private to each person involved. So for you, if you have found at times a surprising level of nostalgia or whimsicalness for people or situations in your past, it may have felt a little bit in juxtaposition with this thrust that's been encouraging you on to seize the moment and really demonstrate what makes Aries people so exciting to be around, because when you really are listening to your instincts and taking action, you're at your best. But at times, even when you have been taking action, it may have felt like in some way or another the handbrake was still on, or perhaps some worries have got into the mix, or perhaps you lacked a little bit of your old confidence, or it may have felt like that, or there may have been some kind of health issue that has just been holding you back a little bit more than you would like. Maybe it's something that's a bit more chronic than acute. Many of us have got some kind of ailment going on that we're just punching through each day to try to crack on and make the most with what we're given. But it's possible that something has been a little bit challenging, because, you know, Saturn is the greater malefic, it's said. But Saturn also rewards us. So if you, in conjunction with getting on the front foot, also been clearing up some loose ends from your past, you've been working this energy perfectly. If you put to bed in your deepest consciousness the breakup with that old flame that was so devastating at the time, or that accident that was very upsetting, or there is some past ways that you were that you're a little bit too locked into, that you've managed to liberate yourself from, you've been working this energy absolutely fantastically well. However, if there is any part of your being where you feel there is some stuff that's still outstanding, or you feel there's still some stuff that you've learned that you want to share to help others, so your insights can act as a guide, whether it be a life coach, a counsellor, an advocate, a good friend, a supportive colleague, or you work in an environment where you can provide those caring services that I mentioned in the introduction, you can use the nodal axis in the sign of Pisces, the north node, in a really constructive way. So it's really down to where you are in your journey, Aries. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025. When you order your personal 2025 forecast, please see the link below for more. So Taurus, ever since Saturn moved into your 11th house in March 2023, I think some people have probably gone out of your world. Now, it could be that some of those people were people that you network with, that perhaps you had allegiances around the same cause. It may have been, in terms of your friendship group, people you see more frequently or not. Saturn obviously can be a barrier, it can cool things down. That may have happened. But also the 11th house can be to do with our dreams, if you like, can be to do with fortune. And if you've perhaps been a bit unrealistic about certain strands in your situation, that's not me saying that, you'd have to make that decision on whether you have or not. Saturn's asking you to scrutinise those expectations and get that earthy feet of yours back onto terra firma, which is difficult when, of course, we're standing on a piece of the sea, which is the sign of Pisces. So things may have seemed a little bit swirly, misty with that Neptunian energy as well. And maybe since 2012 you have had some magical encounters and connections with people around your friendships and interests. But of course the 11th house can be about where we collaborate and cooperate. If you've really worked hard at that, you may have built up some very, very solid links with people that are actually repaying you as I speak. So what about the North Node, the point of destiny, moving to join up with Saturn and Neptune in house 11. Well, I feel that it's asking you in some ways to reinvigorate those expectations, but at the same time with the knowledge and experience that Saturn has taught you. So it doesn't mean to say that we should extinguish hope. Hope is always important to the human state, but at the same time, if we're realistic about it, that's much better than not being realistic. And of course, you have got your ruling planet Venus is going to be in a conjunction with the solar eclipse in your 12th house, which occurs on the 29th of March. So if there is some kind of divergence between you and someone you used to be quite unified with, it could be pretty well completed by the autumn time in the northern hemisphere and the spring down south at the end of that solar eclipse influence. But therefore it could mean that new people are coming in. And one of the things that's important with the south node being in Pisces is that the people that you're socializing with, or who you need to demonstrate your individuality to, you're not being lost in the maelstrom of cooperation, collaboration, or being part of a team. So for example, if you work in a corporation or a business where you don't necessarily get a lot of individual recognition, that might actually start to not really work for you, because it's all about getting the polarity right between what's good for you instinctively, the fifth house, the Virgo energy, where you create something because of your earth energy, but you create something that has some physical value, but also it feels good and it's taking you in a direction that works for you too. So this changing of the guard around certain players in your life could continue, to be honest, particularly with Saturn and Neptune taking that step into your 12th house. And especially in the case of Saturn, from the 23rd of May through to the end of August, there could be some sharp reality about who's no longer in your sphere. But also, it's important to heal. And Neptune moving into Aries from the end of March gives you an opportunity to dive into those more Piscean energies, even though the host is Aries. So in other words, be passionate about understanding more about healing, what you need to do for you to soothe the things that maybe do provide some jagged edges. But really the North Node is about clarifying your future. I feel that our future is always shifting, because very often when we set our intentions, we get near to that breakthrough and actually we've changed, so the scenario changes, and so we're always having to alter. Astrology just helps us to try and find the balance points between different polarities within the process. Please do check out that free gift for your zodiac general, love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Gemini, the North Node making its way into the 10th house is really pushing you to showcase your talents, raise your profile, seek greater acclaim. The North Node can be fortunate, of course, but not when Saturn's in the mix. So that link between the North Node and Saturn, which is going to occur on the 21st of September with the solar eclipse, could be a seminal moment for some twins. But it also depends on the groundwork that you've been doing with Saturn since March 2023. If you've really been putting that application and dedication in, systematically applying yourself to something that really means a lot to you, for sure you can have a breakthrough. But it will be, I feel, important of who you know as much as what you know this year, with Neptune particularly with the 11th house for just under 8 months and Saturn there for just over 3. However, it's also important to understand that different goals and ambitions apply to different people. So your ambitions might be to exhibit your artwork and gain greater recognition for that. someone else it could be to spend time with their grandchildren. Another person it could be to climb the ladder of success in terms of their professional sphere. Now, I feel because Uranus is going to be moving into your sign on the 7th of July for 4 months, that is going to prompt you to be a little more daring. But maybe the 10th house is where we conform a bit more. So if you're a natural bohemian, the summer months are definitely going to bring that out. If you're someone who does want to make it all the way to the boardroom, 10th house energy is more about fitting in with what's expected. But the Piscean vibe is very much about listening to your instincts. But what about the 4th house? Well, that 4th house south node could see your inhibitions or perhaps sensitivities in some ways inhibit your reach for the glory. Now that just depends on you, exactly how you find the balance. The other thing is maybe a job will be offered to you, or a position or an opportunity, and it doesn't quite feel right, even if it's absolutely fantastic. Sometimes people will walk away from something that on paper seems amazing because they have the courage of their convictions. Other people will stay with the practical benefits because it's a little bit fearful to venture outside our comfort zone. So the South Node's really going to test you out around your emotional comfort zone, and perhaps some of the retreat positions you take when opportunities are there, but you may have a safety first attitude just when the moment is there to be seized. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Cancer, if we go back to 2012 when Neptune first arrived in Pisces, since then you've probably experienced so many enriching experiences, so many immersing experiences, whether it's been international travel, whether it's been cruises, very much to do with the sea, of course, the sign of Pisces, or whether it's been of a more spiritual dimension, or maybe it's been through the mediums of film or art, music, anything which has enabled you to widen. Then Saturn comes along and is a more constraining energy, March 23, and some of those things that perhaps were so captivating may still be in the mix, but maybe you've had to adapt and develop some new strategies in order to make both energies work for you. So this year, with the North Node, the point of destiny, moving into your 9th house, maybe there is going to be a particular destination that you will arrive at, but also you will experience the consequences of that journey. So for example, if you've really toiled away at some kind of educational or higher educational qualification, you could seize the prize, which would be absolutely wonderful for you. But of course, with Neptune particularly, and to a slightly lesser degree Saturn moving into your 10th house, although you do have that solar eclipse in Aries, which occurs at the end of March, the desire for change could be linked in some ways to do with your work, and that's where you want to freshen up your experiences. But you need to still feel that you're evolving. Saturn doesn't really let us evolve in quite as free a way as we'd like in the sign of Pisces. It keeps trying to put its hands in all the holes in the dam. The water keeps coming through, but it may create some resistance. So I feel that if you do want to change things up, be more spontaneous, do a different kind of job, there is opportunities for that expansion, but you are going to have to really work at it. Once Jupiter joins you, obviously, on June the 9th, that is on the face of it very helpful, but it is clashing with Saturn right from the off. So that's the seed energy that's going to impact on Jupiter for the whole of its time in your sign. So it's not necessarily going to be a panacea to get that usual every 12-year lucky upturn and more exuberant energy, because Saturn's going to be conditioning it. So all in all, I would say some new responsibilities are heading your way this year, but that doesn't mean to say it can't still be exciting, but it will require a lot of application. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. Because the North Node can be quite karmic, Leo, I feel that if you're someone who's wanting an investment, a connection in a devotional way, you know, whether it is to someone romantically or it is that a connection you already have gets closer, or you add to the clan, or there are some changes you make using your resources in a very shrewd way. Perhaps an inheritance may come your way. Saturn, for example, very much about property. So when we have the solar eclipse, the blue moon solar eclipse of the 21st of September, which is in the sign of Virgo, for you, that is going to connect with the North Node and also Saturn. So that could be a pinch point in terms of what you discover in terms of an outcome, but also it could be a time of gains, because Saturn is, of course, about rewards. It's not just about constraints, hardware, limitation, coldness, desolation. It can be about those things, but it can be about where we take it to us and work with it. It brings us that reward. So, and also because Neptune and Saturn are moving into a very engaging part of your chart. So if you're trying something that's different and fresh, particularly from the solar eclipse of the 29th of March, and with Venus in the mix, if you're doing something that is to do with presentation or the arts or fashion or trends in any way, your instinct for the direction of travel can be very acute, and maybe your business acumen can be really truly rewarded, because I feel Neptune in the 8th house since 212 plus Pluto in the 6th house has seen you go through a lot of sacrifice. You've done a lot for other people, and you're a sign which does thrive really on investing your individual talent in whatever you're doing. But the big juggle this year with that Aries energy is going to be honest, yes, that points towards freedom, being a little bit more risk-taking, adventurous, but also the North Node is connecting to that point in your chart and all these eclipses, the 2nd, 8th house. So if your financial situation isn't quite as balanced as you'd like, that's going to be the story of this year, but you probably will have to work very closely with others, or one other at least, in order to get the outcome you really desire. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Virgo, for you, you often live in the realm of practicalities. What you're being asked to do is meld into your connection point to others or one particular person in a way which creates simpatico. The simpatico can come from that lunar eclipse which occurred on the 18th of September, close to Neptune. But was it easy? Were the signals that you were getting mixed? Did someone seem a bit evasive, elusive, perhaps mystical, but then not actually being around, so you couldn't actually connect to something solid? That may well have been an issue. So once the North Node moves into your 7th house, that can increase your desire to bring the right kind of relationships into your world, or make the relationships you've got work better. And those can be with anyone. It can be with ourselves, it can be with family members, neighbours, colleagues, friends. It doesn't have to just be in the romantic dimension. But by the time we get to that solar eclipse in your sign, which is a blue moon on the 21st of September, that is exactly opposite Saturn and the North Node. If something isn't working in an existing relationship, you're going to really have to work very, very hard in the following 6 months to salvage it. Or it could be that it is just going to end, because Saturn can be a very cold influence, of course, very restraining one, but it also makes demands on us to be disciplined. So be disciplined to listen, disciplined to be attentive, disciplined to be aware of what the other person's feeling or what their situation is about and connecting to that. And because Saturn and Neptune both move into the house that's very much potentially about where we're most devoted, or we decide to leave, the 8th house, going to be a big year for you, I feel, in terms of relationships. Now, if you're not in a relationship, it's possible that the type of relationship that you feel that you're worthy of can come into your life, and that could be absolutely wonderful. And that's where the karma of the North Node could work for you, because Saturn is not all bad, but you do need to have a clear plan. And with Neptune a hazy influence at times, if you don't, that could be an issue. Please do check out that free gift for your zodiac general, love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, we know through many discussions that Pluto has been a very potent thorn in the side whilst it was going through Capricorn, particularly if you've got more than just the ascendant of the sun. You've got multiple planets there. So as Pluto's moved forward since 208, the right angle has been accentuating the potential for strains. But you know, I feel that there's something that hasn't really got discussed enough. I think I have mentioned it, but it's Neptune. So since 2012, there's part of you that may have been extremely sacrificing. And therefore, because you can be a people pleaser, that energy as well can make it very difficult to resist being hugely compassionate to those who are less fortunate. Then Saturn came along, and all that giving may have left you feeling a bit devoid of energy, or even devoid of your own self. And Saturn therefore has asked you to moderate and modify the amount of giving, or the way you work, or how you look after yourself. Become much more conscious of it. And when Saturn and Neptune, but particularly Saturn from the 23rd of, or the 25th, I think, of May, moves into your 7th house, through those 3 months, 7 days to the end of August, that's going to make you very much firmer about what you will or will not put up with. So the North Node moving into your 6th house could be a time when you get rewards for all that hard work and dedication professionally, but it's also important to stay in touch with the 12th house energy, the South Node, about your more sensitive side, where you may have, really given so much, it's almost been like pouring from an empty jar. So Saturn can help you this year. Neptune perhaps a little more challenging because it's a shimmering, isn't it? Nebulous energy, a bit harder to set a boundary, but of course the host Aries gives the equation some more fire, so you can still be assertive but in a caring way. But all the give that's gone on, Saturn's been asking you to be more mindful of how much that's taken out of you. But if you really have done your very, very best to be very loyal, very dedicated, sincere, applied yourself to the very best of your ability, with a real public servant mentality, a great reward could come to you this year. If however it's been too much give and it is still unrelenting, I think by the time we get round to that solar eclipse on the 21st of September, which is opposite the North Node and Saturn, that would be a perfect time to try to check out and take a break, have a vacation, give yourself permission to really spoil yourself, because your energy at that time could be quite fragile. And the 12th house energy can also be the subconscious. So for you, they're flipped. It's the opposite of what they are for everybody else. So for everyone else, collectively, Virgo 6, for you, it's 12. The energy of Pisces is 6, everyone else it's 12. So do think of those archetypes. It's important to balance your emotional and physical health, but at the same time a reward is possible too. Please do check out that free gift for your zodiac general, love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Scorpio, ever since Saturn moved into your 5th house, 5th solar house, In March 2023, he has been asking you some questions, but also encouraging you to embrace your talent, creativity and flair, step up the energy input into those areas, and that could give you, particularly with the nodal axis, the north node arriving in your 5th house, it can give you a dividend this year. But of course, Saturn in the 5th house can be about anything to do with children. So if you have kids, their pursuits may have been consuming quite a lot of your energy since March 2023, which may have cramped your style a little bit. Or has it been a romantic situation that's been a little bumpy at times, even erratic, particularly with Uranus in the 7th house? Because since Neptune moved into your 5th house in 2012, you've had a chance at times to really trip the light fantastic, whether it has been showcasing your talent, charisma, personality power. Once Saturn comes along, it does create some resistance, but I must stress it does also create opportunities. But opportunities with Saturn usually come with application and perspiration. So the fact that Saturn and Neptune are moving into the part of your situation this year to do with the details, to do with the processes, in Saturn's case from the end of May through to the end of August for 3 months. Neptune's going to be there for nearly 8 months, so it is going to be important that whatever you want to achieve that's very much to do with sharing your heart, really getting a reward, a return on what you're really passionate about, you are going to have to be very methodical and very applied. But what about the South Node? Well, the South Node may be a part of your nature that likes to align with what you feel people will believe is acceptable. So kind of keeping up with the crowd, if you like, being a bit too worried about what other people may say, being more concerned about their critique rather than your talent. So that's the challenge for you this year, particularly on the solar eclipse of the 21st of September. Because Saturn and the North Node are opposing that, it is possible that at that time someone you associate with could inhibit your style. Maybe a group activity isn't the best for you. There may be a friend who's jealous and in some ways could get in the way of you really seizing the prize. So if you want to make the most of the North Node, particularly in your 5th house this year, it is going to require some clarity, precision, hard work and endeavour, but most of all the belief that you have the right to express your God-given talents or achieve a reward around something like romance. Because the 5th house can be about marriage, but it also can be about speculation. Some people would say the two are very much joined together. So with Saturn still hovering around for 9 months of the year, if there is a relationship that does mean a lot to you and you do want to go that extra mile to really put everything into trying to make it work, good for you. But also, if you feel that your future, the South Node, is being inhibited in some ways, the 11th house energy, because maybe someone isn't really supporting or encouraging you, it's just a heavy weather relationship, it may be time to rethink. And that's where Uranus for most of the year, all but 4 months, so for 8 months of this year in your 7th house, could see you seek some liberty. So it depends on your exact situations, but definitely some opportunities too. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025. When you order your personal 2025 forecast, please see the link below for more. Sagittarius, Saturn, since it arrived in house 4, March 23, has really asked some searching questions. You may have found out a lot more about your emotional needs, perhaps also some constraints. Maybe some people immediately around you that you thought would be more available for you haven't, and that's been hugely disappointing. Maybe where you've been living has needed a lot of hard work to sort it out. Maybe it's a rental that isn't quite what you need. Maybe it's somewhere that you've invested in that is what you need, but it's requiring a lot of hard graft in order to improve it to the comfort that's important. Maybe if you've got older family members, they've needed your support, or perhaps it's been the tots that's been constraining that freedom loving part of your nature. But the potential for challenges and restriction quite strong. And because you're a very free-spirited person, that's not easy for you. Now, getting Pluto back into Aquarius is a great start. Also, getting Neptune into your 5th house, brilliant for really tripping the light, fantastic when it comes to fun. Saturn into the 5th from the latter part of May to the end of August. Well, Saturn in the 5th isn't always fun, but then you could decide to commit to someone you think is great, and it could be a keeper because Saturn rewards hard work. So the North Node moving into the 4th house could be where you really continue your evolution, because the evolution for Sagittarians, I feel, is not just about that immense knowledge that you seem to absorb so well. It never fails to amaze me about Sagittarians, how much they know, but that part of you that does dust yourself down, goes again whenever there are challenges that come up. I feel you accumulate a lot of bits and pieces, fragments of emotions. So Saturn's been asking you to look at those, process them, decompress from them, take ownership of your soul, if you like. And so the North Node coming along could provide some real bliss. You may get your home exactly as you want. You may get the child you've always craved for. It could be that if someone has been a bit poorly within the family, there could be some strategies that improve the situation. But what about the South Node? Well, that's the 10th house. So if you're spending all your time working and trying to achieve, but not really in touch with how you feel, that's where you need to readdress the balance of the polarity. But let's just consider this. The solar eclipse in Aries, the last of that series on the 29th of March, very, very close to Venus. So if you are wanting to bring some romantic or playful magic into your life, there's a great chance in the 6 months following, but you better be realistic because Neptune's so close to them, that can create some unreality. And then on September the 21st, when the sun is high in the sky, asking you to really go for it in terms of goals and ambitions and status and recognition, there's a very, very tender connection between Saturn and the North Node in your 4th house. And you may find yourself deflected away from what you truly want, or it could be that your professional situation is okay, but you don't really enjoy it. It doesn't feel right. And feeling right is the big lesson that Saturn, these eclipses this year, and the North Node are all asking you to be in touch with Sagittarius. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025 when you order your personal 2025 forecast. Please see the link below for more. So Capricorn, in terms of your 3rd house, recent planetary activity really began in earnest in 2012 with Neptune. Neptune making its way, his way, into your 3rd house. The 3rd house is a great opportunity to share ideas. The imagination of Neptune means that if you're a writer or you use language in a powerful way to express yourself, for example, if you really enjoy reading to kids, if you have your own or you have nephews and nieces, that part of you may have really been triggered in a very constructive way. Also because Neptune is about conveying things. Maybe it's been through painting, maybe through music, maybe through film, photography. These kind of ways are wonderful for getting across a subtle but powerful message. But then Saturn came along. And Saturn from 2023, your ruler, started to scrutinise some of your ideas, 3rd house, perhaps your relationships and some people immediately around you, neighbours, siblings. Your everyday world may have felt a little bit more contained, constrained, not quite so flowy. And of course, the energy that's come in with the eclipse series in the sign of Aries and also Libra has been asking you to try to find the balance between where you connect to the wider world, but how it feels, how you protect your emotional situation, and that's where the North Node has been and will be through to the 11th of January. So then it moves to augment Neptune initially and Saturn initially, but then they move into the 4th house. So you can see we've got crossing over of energies. If your immediate everyday environment is something that you want to flourish in by greater activities within your community, by using technology in a more inspired way, by having meetups and connecting through ideas, you can definitely use the North Node to the greatest extent. But the South Node in the 9th house could be where there may be a greater amount of idealism, but also perhaps potentially a little bit of perfectionism. And for example, if you encounter people who have different viewpoints to you, you may feel that keenly, particularly with Saturn going into Aries in the latter part of May through to the end of August. It may feel that that could be a challenge to you at an individual level. I think it's all very important for us at the present time to try to keep the lines of communication open, even if someone does have a different world view to us. But you know, we do live in a very polarized way, but that's where the spectrum of the North and the South Node is so powerful. It's about finding the tip point, the balance point. So there is going to be the exchange of ideas. Let them be. Try to let other people have those opinions, even if they don't always mesh with yours. But don't see people in a purely black or white terms. So more nuance around your belief systems is one of the big things of this year. You could be travelling more. You could get a new mode of transport. But you also need to make sure that it feels right. And that's the big question your ruler Saturn's going to ask you. There could be some confusion around your emotional life or where to live. When we get to the solar eclipse of the 21st of September, the blue moon, over on the other side of the heavens is a conjunction between Saturn and the North Node. If there has been, particularly with Neptune in the 3rd house, if there has been gossip, whether or messages exchanged that haven't always been based on facts, more of an instinctive fear or worry, and that has been propagated out or in, the reality of those interactions could show up on the 21st of November and in the following 6 months. So there could be a bit of karma that comes through around shared interactions in your everyday world. So this is a year to definitely try to be as noble as possible, not be hung up if people see things differently, keep the lines of communication open, but you are going to be much more sensitive about your home and emotional world. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025. When you order your personal 2025 forecast, please see the link below for more. So Aquarius, since Neptune moved into Pisces in 2012, you may have found yourself feeling very charitable at times, you know, whether it's those text message donations, you know, £3 a time to UNICEF or WaterAid or whatever, really good stuff, or whether it's leaving your change in the local store, in the canister on the counter, a few cents, pennies here, it all builds up, good stuff. Maybe there's been some bigger causes that have grabbed your imagination, food banks, maybe it's to do with some big pushes that have happened when there's been some environmental disasters or big weather events. You know, you've been someone who's been very attuned to people who've had it less fortunate than you. Lovely. But then Saturn comes along from the March 2023, and it's possible that an old income stream that had been pretty solid may have, if not completely dried up, may have contracted since then, and it may have made it much more difficult to be quite as generous and philanthropic as you often have been in the past. Well, the North Node moving back into the 2nd house could give you a karmic reward for all the goodness that you've shown to others in the past, if you've really been that way. If you're someone who's been much more mindful of your resources, and that's not really where the energy's pitched up, it could be that Saturn in the second house has been making you think more about what your value is as a person, also what you stand for, what are the things that really define you, and that can continue to be part of this year's journey. But I think you would know that having Pluto back in Aquarius but linking up with Neptune and Saturn and Uranus going into Gemini and then Mars going into Libra in August, they're all very happy triggers that can be very good for you, and bring a greater sense of connectivity. But I still stand by it. If you've been a giver, there's a good chance you can be a receiver. But at the same time, perhaps what Saturn has been teaching you and me since March 2023 is the value of things, to really treasure the value of things. And in some ways that can be, those old-fashioned thrifty pursuits. When I was a kid, my aunt always used to say, you've got to save the milk bottle tops. She'd wash them, put them on the windowsill, can remember clearly, and then in her kitchen there would be a little paraffin fire, but there'd always be tomatoes growing in the greenhouse. There'd always be the sense there was something, but you had to be careful to cut the meat thinly or cut the vegetables carefully if you were peeling them, to look after resources. And if you are a very keen environmentalist, and I'm sure a lot of Aquarian people probably are, then obviously that thriftiness is a good thing, but also upcycling, or if you don't want things anymore, particularly when Uranus comes along into Gemini, you want more space and air around you, taking stuff to the local charity shop is a noble thing to do, but it frees up space, but it's a good energetic exchange. So I feel the energetic exchange doesn't necessarily have to come just from enriching you financially. It's more about how you're feeling better about who you are, what you stand for. And the more we love ourselves, the more we're going to receive from the universe. Please do check out that free gift for your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese or Vedic forecast for 2025. When you order your personal 2025 forecast, please see the link below for more. Pisces, a huge event for you, because obviously for you, the arrival of the North Node is all about defining your individuality, which Saturn has probably been making quite a challenge since March 2023. It's been asking you to simplify your life, be aware of where it's not worth diversifying, just keep it simple and focus on what is absolutely essential. But you are going to test out some of your plans and things you've started over that time with Saturn moving into house 2. And also Neptune moving into house 2 is asking you, like Saturn, to be very realistic, but just in a slightly different way. But I feel that obviously, as much as the individuality of the North Node is important, it's possible with the 7th house South Node, as I demonstrated in my introduction, could be where you would retreat, because you can be such a giver. But again, I feel that Pisces is a sign that's often characterized in a very simplistic way. You're not always that person who gives it absolutely everything. You can also be quite cool. If you're not quite sure, you're much more guarded. You can be that trout at the bottom of the pool. You see the angler trying to hook you in. You've got his game all worked out. It could be cheese, it could be worms, it could be this, that or the other. You know what the strategy is because of your wisdom, your accumulated wisdom. So you can be very, very wise. But it is also possible that Saturn being in your own sign has limited your vitality, perhaps in a way that has affected your energy quite profoundly. So the nodal axis switching into your own sign generally is great for a new beginning. But it's a new beginning that has to be tempered by the value of whatever it is that you're excited about. It has to have something tangible about it. And that's not always something you find quite so easy to bring into your reality, because you can be so ephemeral. You know, things do drift and dream around you, and there's nothing wrong with that. We'd never have poets and musicians and philosophers if it wasn't for Pisces people, but nor would we have people who are quite shrewd in business, captains of industry, because of your canny way of working out what's going on, sitting in that lake watching things, learning from past experiences and adapting through your flexing, your mutability. So you're a powerful sign, don't underestimate yourself, but the North Node should hopefully help your vitality this year, but it is still about focusing on what's really essential. And if a relationship isn't quite in balance, you're going to find that out from September the 21st solar eclipse in your opposite sign, with Saturn and the North Node in your sign. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Please do check out those year 2025 deep dive forecasts. I put a lot into them, and I really would appreciate you looking at them for me and interacting with them. Thank you so much. Have a great 2025. All the best and goodbye.